The aroma of popcorn filled the air as laughter echoed through Jenna's apartment. It was their annual game night, a tradition that had started years ago in college. Jenna, Mark, Lily, and Ben gathered around the coffee table, stacks of their favorite board games piled high. "I've got Settlers of Catan ready to go," Mark announced, grinning as he shuffled the cards. "Not until we played Secret Assassin first," Lily argued, waving the game box in the air. "It's my year to host, and I say we start with a classic." Ben rolled his eyes, playfully dramatic. "Fine, but I'm keeping an eye on you this time, Lily. You're too good at lying in this game." Jenna was about to settle the debate when the doorbell rang. She frowned, glancing at the clock. It was almost 9 p.m., too late for any expected visitors. "Did anyone order food?" Jenna asked, getting up from the couch. The others shook their heads, equally puzzled. She opened the door, and there, on the doormat, sat a large, weathered box. It was an old board game, its wooden case scratched and faded. The words, "The Game of Truce," engraved in elaborate script. "What is this?" Jenna asked, carrying it back to the table. Mark raised an eyebrow. "Did one of you bring this as a surprise?" Lily shook her head. "Not me. I've never even heard of it." Ben picked up the box, examining it. "Feels heavy," he muttered, shaking it lightly. "The pieces inside clink together. This thing looks ancient. Where did it come from?" "No idea," Jenna said. "I found it outside. I thought one of you brought it as a joke." They exchanged confused looks, each friend denying responsibility. A chill settled over the room, but it was quickly broken by Mark's grin. "Well, it's a game night, isn't it?" he said, rubbing his hands together. "Might as well give it a try. Who knows? It could be fun." Lily hesitated. "We don't know where it came from." "Exactly," Ben said with a smirk, "which makes it even more interesting. Come on, where's your sense of adventure?" Jenna relented, sitting down and opening the box. Inside were intricately carved game pieces, a deck of cards, and a small hourglass filled with black sand. The board was unlike anything they'd ever seen before, its design a swirling maze of strange symbols and pathways. The group leaned in, examining it with a mix of curiosity and excitement. "This is so cool," Mark said. "It looks like something out of a mystery movie." Ben picked up the rulebook, flipping through its yellow pages. "It's pretty simple," he said. "The game is called the Game of Truce. The objective is to reach the center of the board, and along the way you draw cards and answer the questions." "Sounds easy enough," Jenna said, placing the pieces on the starting square. "Let's play." They took their seats, eager to begin. None of them noticed the faint whisper that escaped the box as it closed, or the way the room seemed to grow colder, just for a moment. And so, the game began. Jenna rolled the dice first, her piece landing on a square marked with a strange symbol. She picked up a card from the deck and read it aloud. "What is the biggest lie you've ever told to someone at this table?" The group exchanged amused glances. "Ooh, juicy," Lily teased. "Come on, Jenna, tell us your deepest, darkest secret." Jenna laughed nervously. "Well, it's no big deal, but remember the time I said I loved your homemade cookies, Mark? I actually threw them away after one bite. They were awful." Mark pretended to gasp, clutching at his chest. "Betrayal." The friends laughed, the tension from earlier easing. It felt like any other game night, fun, lighthearted, and filled with teasing. But as Jenna placed the card back on the stack, the temperature in the room seemed to drop a few degrees. Ben rolled the dice next. His piece moved to a square marked with a crescent moon. He drew a card and read it with a frown. "Truth always finds a way. Speak it now. What regret haunts you the most?" His playful grin faltered, replaced by a somber look. He glanced around the table, suddenly uncomfortable. Maybe we should skip this one." Mark leaned forward. "Come on, Ben. It's just a game. What's your biggest regret?" Ben hesitated and sighed. "Fine. I regret not telling my dad I loved him more often. We didn't have the best relationship, and now it's too late." The room fell silent, the weight of Ben's confession hanging in the air. Lily reached out and squeezed his hand. "I know that you felt that way," she said softly. "I never told anyone," Ben replied, his voice barely above a whisper. A shiver ran down Jenna's spine. She looked at the board, noticing for the first time how the symbols seemed to shift slightly, like they were alive. "Maybe we should stop," she suggested. "This game feels different." Lily shook her head. "It's just making us talk about real stuff. That's what makes it fun, right?" Mark nodded, but there's a nervous edge to his smile. "Yeah, it's like a truth or dare game. We're just being honest." He rolled the dice, landing on his base with a skull symbol. The candle on the table flickered as he drew a card. "Reveal a secret you've never told anyone, or suffer a consequence." The group laughed nervously. "This game is intense," Mark said. "Okay, a secret? I guess I've never told anyone that I was the one who crashed Ben's car back in college." Ben's head snapped up. "What? I thought it was a hit and run." Mark winced. "Yeah, I was scared to tell you. I'm sorry." Before they could say more, the room went dark, the lights flickering out. A cold breeze swept through, and the board began to glow with an eerie blue light. "What's happening?" Jenna whispered, her heart pounding. Ben picked up the rulebook, his hands shaking. "I don't know," he said, "but I think this game isn't just about telling the truth. It's about forcing it out, whether we want it or not." The lights flickered back on, casting a dim, unsettling glow across the room. The friends sat in stunned silence, staring at the board as the hourglass in the middle began to turn on its own, the black sand trickling down slowly. "This isn't normal," Jenna said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Games don't do this." Lily reached for the dice, her hand trembling. "Maybe if we finish, you'll stop," she said. "We just have to play until the end, right?" Ben shook his head. "No, we should stop. We need to put the game away." But before anyone could move, the dice rolled themselves across the table, landing in front of Jenna. Her piece slid across the board, stopping on a space with an open eye symbol. She drew a card, her hands shaking. "The past is watching you. Reveal the moment you wish you could erase." Jenna's face paled, her eyes wide with fear. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't say it." The room darkened again, a shadow falling over the board. The others watched in horror as the pieces on the board began to move by themselves, sliding toward the center. "You have to answer, Jenna," Mark urged, his voice strained. "If you don't, the game will take something from you." Tears filled Jenna's eyes. "It was my fault," she blurted out. "The car accident 2 years ago. It wasn't an accident. I caused it." Her confession hung in the air like a cloud of smoke. The room seemed to sigh, the tension lifting slightly. The hourglass flipped again, the sand trickling down faster now. Mark slammed his fist on the table. "This isn't a game anymore. It's manipulating us." Ben nodded, his face twisted with fear. "We need to stop this now." The board responded with a deep, echoing laugh. The pieces slid toward the final space at the center, the swirling symbols glowing brighter. Jenna grabbed the box, her hands shaking. "We have to close it. That's how we end it." The group tried to force the lid shut, but an unseen force held it open. The laughter grew louder, a cacophony of voices overlapping. The room trembled, and the lights exploded, plunging them into darkness. And then a voice spoke from the board itself, calm and cold. "You have started the game. Now you must finish it. The truth must come out." In the pitch black room, the board continued to glow with an eerie blue light, casting long shadows across the faces of the terrified friends. The voices on the board had stopped, leaving a heavy, oppressive silence. Only the sound of the sand in the hourglass, trickling faster and faster, filled the room. "We can't keep playing this," Ben said, his voice hoarse with fear. "This isn't a game, it's something else. We need to destroy it." Jenna nodded frantically, trying to grab the board, but the moment her fingers touched it, it felt a sharp, burning pain and yanked her hand back. The board wouldn't let them go. "It's forcing us to finish," Mark said, staring at the hourglass as the last few grains of black sand slipped through. "If we don't, I don't know what will happen." Lily picked up the dice with trembling fingers. "We have to keep going," she whispered. "It's the only way." She rolled the dice, landing on a square marked with an hourglass. The room seemed to grow colder, the air thick with tension. She drew a card, her hands shaking. "What betrayal have you kept hidden from those you love?" Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. "No," she said, shaking her head. "I can't say." The board rattled violently, a deep rumble filling the room. Mark grabbed her arm. "You have to, Lily. They won't let us move on unless you do." Lily sobbed, covering her face with her hands. "It was me," she confessed. "I was the one who told your ex about your new girlfriend, Jenna. I wanted you to break up. I was jealous." Jenna's mouth fell open, shock and betrayal flashing across her face. "You did what?" she whispered. "I'm sorry," Lily cried. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I was hurting." Before Jenna could respond, the hourglass turned over again, the sand falling even faster. The board was nearly glowing now, the symbol swirling like liquid light. Ben stepped forward, grabbing his piece and moving it to the next space. He didn't need to roll the dice, he just wanted it to be over. He drew a card, his hand steady despite the chaos. "Reveal the truths you've hidden, face the consequence." He took a deep breath, his face pale. "I lied about the car accident," he said, his voice flat. "I knew it was you, Jenna. I saw you. But I didn't say anything because I was scared of losing our friendship." The silence that followed was unbearable. Jenna's face crumbled, a mix of guilt and relief washing over her. "You knew?" she whispered. "All this time?" "Yes," Ben said. "I thought it would be easier if we never talked about it. But I was wrong." The room seemed to breathe with them, the tension easing for a brief moment. Then the board shuddered, the pieces moving on their own to the final square in the center. Mark looked at the group, his face pale. "This is it," he said. "One last move." The room seemed to pulse with energy as Mark picked up the final card. The edges of the card glowed with the same eerie blue light as the board, and his hand shook as he held it up. "The game of truths is complete," he read aloud. "But before it ends, one final truth must be revealed. What secrets do you hold that could change everything?" Mark's eyes went wide, and he dropped the card as if it had burned him. "I can't," he muttered, backing away. "I won't say it." Ben stepped forward, grabbing Mark's arm. "You have to. We cannot leave it unfinished." Mark shook his head violently, tears streaming down his face. "No, you don't understand. If I say it, it will ruin everything." Jenna, still reeling from the earlier confession, stepped forward. "Mark, we've come this far. Whatever it is, we need to hear it." The board rattled again, the glow intensifying. Mark took a shuddering breath, looking at each of his friends in turn. "Fine," he said quietly. "I've been lying to you all." They stared at him, confused. "What do you mean?" Lily asked. "I brought the game here," Mark confessed. "I found it at an estate sale weeks ago. I thought it would be fun, something different. But when I read the rules, I realized what it was. I knew it would force us to tell the truth." The shock was palpable. Ben stepped back, disbelief on his face. "You knew? You knew what this game could do and you brought it here anyway?" Mark nodded, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Yes, because I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep hiding everything we buried. I thought it would help us. I thought we needed this. You put us through this on purpose?" Jenna's voice was filled with betrayal. Mark's face crumbled. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know it would get this bad. I didn't know it would take control like this." The board seemed to laugh, the sound echoing through the room. The hourglass flipped one last time, the black sand pouring out in a rush. The lights flickered and a voice spoke, calm and cold. "The game of truth has ended. The final truth has been spoken. You have faced your secrets, but at what cost?" The board glowed brightly and burst into a cloud of ash, scattering across the room. The friends stood in stunned silence, the weight of their confessions pressing down on them. Jenny looked at her friends, her eyes filled with tears. "What do we do now?" she whispered. Ben stepped forward, pulling them into a tight embrace. "We start over," he said. "No more secrets." The room felt lighter, the tension finally lifting. They had faced their deepest truths, and though the scars would remain, they had a chance to heal. As they left the apartment, the wind carried away the last traces of ash, taking the remnants of the game with it. The game of truth has ended, but its legacy will live on in the bonds they had reforged.